We have a great guest on this.
Yes,
Joining us now is Larry Kudlow, former director of the National Economic Council, who's making his Fox News debut today. Larry, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I wanted to start off with a question about what's it like on the other side of your time of the White House. I know it takes a long time, believe me, I remember, to sort of rest and recover and feel restored and ready to go. How are you doing?
Well, I feel restored and ready to go. How's that?
Good.
Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for having me in the Fox family. It's a wonderful opportunity. I look forward to it. I'm very energized. I can't wait to go. I couldn't think of a better pair to begin than Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino, two old friends of mine.
Thank you.
You're kind.
And I hope we get to talking to this $2 trillion package, which doesn't make much sense to me.
Okay,
but anyway, I feel great. I played indoor tennis yesterday.
Very good.
We've taken some time off, Judy and I. We're all right. Everything's good.
Larry, welcome, and we're going to have many times to talk in the future. Two bits of sound from Sunday. First, Jared Bernstein with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. watch.
Look, the American people really couldn't care less about budget process, whether it's regular order, bipartisanship, whether it's filibuster, whether it's reconciliation. They need relief, and they need it now. So the urgency here is the cost of inaction, and the plan is scaled to finally meet the challenge.
Okay, so there is the message on Fox. Here, Larry, is the message on CBS. This is Cedric Richmond, a White House advisor. Watch.
If you think of all the frontline workers that are out there risking their lives every day, they shouldn't have to work two jobs just to make a living wage and live above the poverty line. Look, the other people want to argue process. We want to argue purpose in moving this country forward.
So they were arguing the same thing. American people care about progress and not the process. How's that process going to go, do you think?
Well, I think, my friend Jared Bernstein, good man. We disagree on some things, but he's a friend. I think he's right. I don't think the issue here is about process or reconciliation, which needs only 51 votes. Republicans have used that tool in the past. I think it's about policy, however. I mean, look, let's take one thing that has nothing to do with anything as far as COVID is concerned, and that's raising the national minimum wage. You know who that's going to hurt the most? That's going to hurt African Americans, Hispanics, other minority groups. It's going to hurt the poorest part of the workforce, because once you get outside of, let's say, New York and California, maybe Illinois, the cost of living is much lower in all these states, and these small businesses that are desperately trying to reopen, they can't afford it, and therefore they're going to lay off workers. I mean, I love a maximum wage. I think you ought to grow the economy with low taxes and regulations and so forth, and that'll get everybody a job, and that'll get them up to maximum minimum wage. But federal legislation never works. It costs jobs. It damages those who need them the most, and it's a terrible idea. You want to do it at the state level? Let the states parcel through that. I probably might not like it, but nonetheless, it should at least be a state level. Regionally, you can't do it by nationwide diktat. The other point I want to make is, I think one of you made it, we don't even know how much money has been spent or not spent from the prior packages. That's the odd thing about this. There is no accounting. I've seen no numbers. I've been checking around with all my contacts. From the March CARES bill that was repurposed in December, we don't know how much has gone to the PPP, Small Business Initiative. We don't know how much is out the door on the unemployment assistance. We don't know how much has gone to the states and localities. We should be assessing the economy before we dive into another $2 trillion package, which I must say is something of a Democratic wish list. So those are some of the biggest problems. I want to talk about the economy, by the way, because we are still in a V-shaped recovery. The economy is very strong. I read about this economic crisis. I don't believe it, and I can prove to you that it's not there.
but it is acute for some people, and that's one of the problems that the Republicans seem to have with the administration's approach, which is at the huge the multiple trillions of dollars that they want to spend, it's very broad brush, and instead of being very targeted to individuals that actually need it, people who've lost their businesses, restaurant owners, things like that. And the other point I wanted to ask you about is that Chuck Schumer, the Democratic majority leader in the Senate, he said the Republicans' proposal is a no-go for him because there's no state and local money in it. That was a big sore point, I know, earlier on last year. Tell me about those two issues. Well, look at, as far as I can tell, the White House package or the Schumer-Pelosi package has about $365 billion for states and localities. You know, they have already received hundreds of billions of dollars. And you really have to ask yourself, do they need that kind of money? And how has the accounting for the prior assistance been made? Again, what is spent and unspent? I don't think that number is nearly enough. By the way, state revenues across the country, including places like New York and California, are actually rising, not falling, because the economy is much stronger than people are suggesting. So I think that's a very key point. Look, I'm okay with strictly targeted funding, particularly for health, vaccination, and school openings, okay? I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with spending stimulus checks, sending out and spending stimulus checks on 1 penny or 2 penny stocks, which is what's been happening with this incredible story of GameStop and other some of these penny stocks. That's so silly. Any money given out should be strictly targeted to the lowest end, and I'd like to see what the prior legislation accomplishes. Let's have an accounting. Let's know where that money is going to come from. Said there's and one last point. Go ahead. Hang on, Bill. Let me. I got to make this one point. I'm sorry to interrupt. I understand. I heard a story. I think it's true. You can check me out on this. Teachers in Northern Virginia received the vaccinations, and they still, because of the teachers' union, refuse to reopen the schools and go back to school. Now, that is nutty. And what I'm saying is a lot of this spending money is going to Democratic interest groups. It is not going to the general health and welfare of the country. It is not going towards COVID. Vaccination money, fine. Legitimate school opening money, fine. Giving out stimulus checks so people can buy penny stocks, not fine, not good.
I think Rob Portman said up of $900 billion hasn't been spent yet. So that's the number that's been out there. Fair point. We really don't know what it is. Keystone decision. I know you don't like it. I wonder what the practical effect of that is over the next 4 years or 4 years plus. China engagement. You had a strategy. What's theirs?
Well, look on the Keystone. And no drilling, no fracking on federal lands, no leasing and drilling and so forth, and the Paris Climate Agreement. What you're getting is the first policies of the new administration, which will come down very heavily on energy. We are energy independent thanks to President Trump's actions. Pipelines, infrastructure, drilling, fracking. We've stopped importing foreign oil. We are stronger at home and abroad because of it. The Biden administration looks in the early going to want to roll that back, and will have decimating, terrible impacts on the economy. Keystone itself has been variously estimated at 10 or 12,000 jobs lost, but it's just going to build from there. I do not think we are in any kind of environmental or global warming crisis. We could talk about that some other time. The data do not show that. This has just become kind of a religion or a left-wing mantra. It's not there. On China policy, Bill, I see ambiguity here, okay? I see ambiguity. First of all, some of the people speaking out on China have said that we will continue to be tough on China, that President Trump's policies, former President Trump's policies, will not be repealed regarding so-called tough on China. The Phase 1 trade deal is moving ahead. We left tariffs on to police that deal. I don't know how that's going to be disposed. Some of the cabinet appointees have been less than clear about keeping Huawei out of the United States, the telephone company, which we have banned. It's on the so-called export ban list, or the blacklist. That's important to keep. So I've heard some good things about China policy, and I've heard some ambiguous things. We don't exactly know yet. We must stand tall with China. They are a competitor, but I think increasingly they are an enemy of the United States, particularly regarding national security. And we must protect the crown jewels of technology. That was the thrust of President Trump's China policy. That's what Lighthizer and I and Mnuchin worked on. The crown, and Wilbur Ross, the crown jewels of our policy must protect new technological advances, which is the heart of the creative destruction economy. It is the heart of making America the fastest growing.
Can I ask you one last question here? Obviously, you loved your time at the White House. You love your life. You love it. I want to know what you have for breakfast in the morning, because I want to try to replicate it. But I also ask this. Is there something that was left undone, something that you didn't have a chance to finish during the Trump administration that you wish you would have had a chance to do?
Well, look, yes, of course, on policies. And by the way, I think while I may disagree with President Trump's, behavior in the last couple of months, I think in policy terms, he was a brilliant, consequential president. We could have gone further, Dana, on tax reduction and reform, pro-growth tax reduction and reform, because our tax cuts helped those who needed it the most. It was the middle and lower end. We could have gone further on deregulation, in my judgment. We went across the board, but I still think there was unfinished work to do. We made great progress on 5G, all the telephone connections, ultra-fast telephone connections, which we spearheaded at NEC. But we could have gone further. We made great progress there. I would have liked to have had more opportunities. There are a number of areas of
frankly,
unfinished work.
You got a lot
question.
done, too. You mentioned the last couple of months. When was the last time you talked to President Trump?
I spoke to him on the Thursday before the inauguration. We had a lovely, 20-minute chat. He was very gracious. He was very kind. He was very complimentary. We talked mostly about our achievements as an administration in the policy areas that I mentioned, and then some. He was much calmer at that point.
Did you talk about
he put out some great videos.
Did you talk about the events of January 6th, Larry?
No, we did not. We did not. I think the president knew my view. He put out some very good videos abhorring violence towards the very end. I wish he had done that 2 months earlier and stayed with that. I've always felt, Bill, that when the Electoral College voted Mr. Biden as president-elect, President Trump would have been better advised to talk about his great policy achievements in foreign policy, the Middle East, for example, China, and in economic policy. We were having a gangbuster recovery. Even now, we are in a V-shaped recovery while this pandemic continues to play out. I would have preferred that. And, I think at some point the Republican Party needs to think about really saying from these crazy far-right groups, just as these crazy far-left groups, both parties ought to just say, we don't want your type. We do not. I remember my dear great friend and mentor, the late William F. Buckley. He threw out the John Birch Society in the 1950s. He just threw them out through his magazine, National Review. And the Republican Party followed suit because they were extreme, crazed, anti-Semitic, and so forth. There was no room in the GOP. Yeah. I would like to see President Trump and other spokespeople throw out some of these crazy groups, and I think Democrats should throw them out on the left wing as well. But President Trump, phenomenal policy achievements. He will go down in history for that. And my guess is we have not heard the last from him on a number of things.
Larry, we have a lot to talk about. Thank you for the time today, but we're out of time. To be continued. Look out for Perino. She's a tough one, okay? Welcome to the Fox family.
Welcome, Larry.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
Great to